Welcome. Come on in, you guys. Happy Sunday. Look at this. Look at this. Get out of there. Stop messing with much. All right. Welcome. Well, I'll be blunt. Brotherhood my ass. That's all I got to say. Brotherhood my ass. A year later, and Riley's parents file a, I think it's a bombshell. I think it's very interesting how they're going to go about this. And I think they're going about it the right way. This lawsuit, in case you guys don't know, Riley went missing last year at a formal event in Nashville. He was part of the, is it Delta? It's what, Delta Chi Fraternity, University of Missouri. And so they had their spring formal they have every year. They go to a different place, or they can take it off campus. And so they went to Nashville, and they got 4 charter buses. Okay. And these charter buses, what you were allowed to do is each member was allowed to bring one non-member with them. So you could have your date, or a friend, I guess. But so in this, we have the fraternity is being sued. Then we have the registered agent of the BCC Missouri LLC, who basically the people that own the fraternity house, and it's under the Business Filing International Incorporated. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and then a Jane and John Doe. So there's 32, well, there's 2 businesses, 30 citizens, and then 2, there's a Jane and a John Doe. And so I went ahead and with Bella last night, and I made her, we looked up every single one of these kids. I wanted to know how old they were. Okay. Dude, they knew that this was coming, you guys. They've already began to scrub themselves from the internet. These kids have already begun to scrub themselves from the internet. There's some really interesting names, like Cockle. Cockell. My last name, Cockle. How do you spell that? Well, cock and add an E-double-L. Cockle, come on down. He's 53 years old, unless he has a son by the same name. But Zachary wiped. Sebastian Lacassie wiped. Jack Whitnauer. We found a little bit on Nolan. We found a little bit on Joseph Battaglia. There's kids in here that are 20 years old. William Wappler. He likes Whoppers. He's 20. We got a guy, Michael Pulliman, Smoothie King. He works at Smoothie King. I would never be involved with a frat, pay all that type of money, and then go work at Smoothie King. He was served at his Smoothie King work address. How do I know this? Because I checked it all out. You know, it's also weird to see these people that are born like 2004. I'm like, holy shit. Like, wow. I'm old. 21, 23, 20, 22, 21, 21, 24, 25. Now, let's get to this. You're old as fuck. What's up, criminality? You know I'm old. So SF Investigates comes out. Do you have that pulled up by chance on your phone? Yeah. SF Investigates was working with the family. In an interesting post, I thought it was interesting. He claims every single person's name that's in here, he didn't interview any of them, and they were not with Riley the night that this happened. And I'm just like, well, it's interesting. Interesting. Texas to hire Sean Miller? Oh, Sean Miller's a good coach. So here we go.
He just posts a lot, so it takes a minute from what we saw last night.
God, he already posted more?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, so in this, we're going to start with the members.
You could read it.
Okay. SF Investigates. I have received many messages from individuals and media regarding Riley Strain's family's filing, that they filed this lawsuit against his fraternity and several quote-unquote brothers. My only comment is that from glancing over the complaint, it appears they are suing based on alleged misrepresentations used to attract Riley to the fraternity and negligence in failing to adhere to their bylaws regarding alcohol. It's way more than that, SF. Notably, none of the named fraternity brothers being sued were with Riley in the hours before he was ejected from the bar. Unless they gave you not accurate names when they said what their names were when he was interviewing them. I don't know. I personally interviewed, he says, all the fraternity brothers who were with him that evening in Nashville. And none of them are named as defendants in this lawsuit. Instead, the lawsuit seems to focus on alleged negligence in Missouri before the trip to Nashville, arguing that because of that negligence, Riley lacked proper self-control, oversight, and chaperoning for the trip. Or all of these people became whistleblowers. That's what I think. Because it blew my mind of what they were able, of what they're writing in here. But he's claiming, he's like, these are none of the people that are on this are people that I interviewed. So I'm like, wow, okay. The lawsuit does not relate to my investigation into Riley's death and the hours leading up to it. Again, none of the fraternity brothers he was out drinking with that night are defendants in this case. And I think he has a problem with that. He keeps reiterating that. Like, basically, he's like saying, like, why wouldn't any of those people be? They're the ones that basically left him. You know what I mean? But we're gonna get into that. Christina, thank you so much. Love this channel. I'm usually listening in the bushes. We applaud the bush here. I have a busy life. I appreciate you. Oh, thank you. So he then says, see, I think SF has when he says he glanced over it, clearly that's how I feel about that. But for that reason, I will not be making any further public comments. Whether Riley should have had a chaperone, wasn't able of controlling his actions, or was persuaded against his better judgment to go to Nashville will be for a jury to decide. If anyone would like to read the lawsuit and form their own opinions, here is the link to the filed complaint. Thank you, SF. Appreciate you. Well, so with that said, here it is. I want to tell you that whoever named their kid Gibbs Hutter. Applause. Gibbs. Somebody that really liked their last name and they named their kid the first name of their last name. Feels like a wife that had to change her name, but I want to name my kid Gibbs after like my family's name. That's kind of what I see there. We got so slap happy last night reading these names. We applaud the bush. You guys like that? Another interesting name. Like I told you, I get Joseph Cockle. That's just a mouthful. Joseph Cockle. Come on down. All right, here we go. I was up researching what type of legs this has. So, would you guys like to see it on Hector? Is it better for you guys to follow along?
You know what can I just say about Gibbs is I just thought about the Bee Gees.
Bee
Like,
Gees.
what if she was just into the Bee Gees? It's the Gibb brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but another mouthful.
Saturday Night.
The Bee Gees. Oh, you didn't say BJs. Bee Gees.
Bee Gees, the band.
The band. Gotcha.
The ensemble.
All right, here. Did you guys say you wanted to see it on Hector? Hector, start moving around. Wiggle it. Thank you. Thank you, Hector. Okay. I gotta make this bigger. Why is it so dark? Hector, what are you doing? All right, so Riley enrolled and attended the University of Missouri beginning in 2020 after graduating from Kickapoo. God, these names today. Kickapoo, baby. Not long after Riley arrived at the University of Missouri, he was recruited to rush for the Delta. It's Delta Chi, isn't it? As you guys can see, I didn't attend much Greek. So, yes, Lana, it is chai. Come on, chai tea. Chi? Is it Delta Chi? It is Delta Chi, guys. It is Delta Chi. It is, listen to JLR talk about Delta Chi. You guys remember that live? Best live I've ever heard in my life. Huge fan of JLR. We could be on opposite ends of every case, but motherfucker makes me laugh. Delta Chi. So among the variety of pitches made to Riley were the offer pitted themes of financial success of fraternity brothers compared to their peers, the additional resources provided to and for the fraternity brothers by Delta Chi, the strong ethos of character and the Delta Chi instilled into fraternity brothers, and primarily, as the name implies, you gain dozens of new brothers that act like and consider themselves family. Riley thereafter joined the Brotherhood of Delta. Yeah, it says it on my screen, on my thumbnail. A brotherhood, my ass. As an athlete, there's just no way in hell that we would have not have went with him. One person. The kid can't even walk when you see all this stuff. So here's some piece of history. So it was founded in 1890 at Cornell University. So there are currently approximately 108 chapters, by the way. So now, Delta Chi also specifically targets potential members by targeting their parents. Okay, Brian, don't do that. Okay. You're timed out, Brian. Don't come in here and do that shit. So, because they say, dear parents, which assure parents of the students that Delta Chi will keep their children safe, specifically highlighting Delta Chi's stern stance on alcohol. So, oh boy. Delta Chi also promotes the fact that it was originally founded as a legal fraternity and still maintains as its cardinal principles the observations of and respect for the law. Delta Chi also claimed to have created policies and procedures for its chapters, including the University of Missouri chapter, which include chapter coaching, prevention, education, leadership training, and life skills training. The prevention education component of Delta Chi's policies and procedures specifically identified the following prevention needs for its fraternities, including the University of Missouri chapter. 1 is the alcohol use and misuse. 2 is the hazing preventions. 3 is the sexual misconduct prevention. And 4 is the social event planning. Within these training, so I was like, oh, wow, I think I know where they're headed with this. They're about to show, because somebody would have had to give up this information, that this chapter, they weren't even putting down who was a fucking fraternity member. Okay? So within its training, it specifically claims that any alcohol product containing more than 15% alcohol by volume is prohibited at any chapter facility or chapter event, except when served by a licensed and insured third-party vendor. So do you guys remember when Riley's mom said that we all went crazy looking online to look at the menu of what Riley was drinking? Well, now I firmly believe that whatever he was drinking that tasted like X, Y, and Z, those were the Jello shots that we're going to talk about. Okay, these different Jello shots. So, I think you guys can remember that we were, when his mom was talking about what he was drinking. So, beyond the, I went and looked up social events because this is why lawsuits have made it and have not made it. So the wording matters, and how you're going to present your information matters in terms of what is the care of duty, what was Riley owed, you know what I mean? So that to me was important to compare to past. So I just started looking up a bunch of lawsuits that had to do with fraternities, because there's a lot of stuff that has to do with hazing, and this isn't hazing. This is different. And I think that they're going about it the right way, by the way. Oh, what did I just do? So a social event as events with unrestricted access by non-members of the chapter without specific invitation, where alcohol is present, are prohibited regardless of the occasion, and includes but is not limited to family and friends of members. So because this was technically, this is their formal, this is an event, so they shouldn't have had alcohol. It being an official frat trip definitely helps. Exactly. Melissa, thank you for chiming in there. It's exactly what it is. So 52 here is Delta Chi's policies and procedures were that it represented the public, or it represented to the public, including potential and current fraternity brothers, parents. In reality, Delta Chi, acting through its own employees, Delta Chi leadership, and Delta Chi members who at all times, material here too, were acting as agents, apparent agents, representatives, and or members of Delta Chi. It was very different from its carefully crafted public image. So these people are acting as agents and they're not representing anything that they're supposed to be, and it's all basically a sham, right? Which I 150% agree. All day, every day. The formal was a destination social event that could be held anywhere the chapter selected, so long as approved by Delta Chi headquarters and advisors. So this is important because I circled it because I believe that somebody whistle blew on the fact. Wait till you start seeing what we're going to get into. I was like, how are they getting any of this information? Where did they get this from? You know? The formal involved traveling to a destination via charter bus and allowed for one non-fraternity member guest to accompany each fraternity brother. So I said to myself, well, maybe SF Investigates was interviewing these non-members when he's saying that I didn't talk to any of the brothers. Okay. So that's where I'm giving him like, well, maybe this is who you were interviewing. Okay. Or like I said, they're not listed for some specific reason. The formal typically takes place in the spring semester of each school year. It was well known that each of these social events, including on the charter bus traveling to the formal, there were prolific consumption of alcohol. Much of it was above 15%, if not all of the alcohol was provided by its members, period. In the spring of 2024, Riley was first approached about attending the yearly formal in Nashville. Riley, an often reserved young man that did not tend to go with the typical fraternity flow, said he did not plan to attend the formal. His fraternity brothers continued to pressure Riley. They must have evidence of this, okay, this pressuring. They must have text messages, you know what I mean? Or people are going to testify to that. They want a trial jury. So I think they would have evidence of that. But yeah, Riley was pressured about this formal, and after their continued cajoling, Riley agreed to attend the Nashville formal. On March 8, 2024, Riley and the group of Delta Chi fraternity brothers, many with their dates, boarded 4 separate charter buses destined for Nashville. Riley boarded the bus without a date, but with what he thought was a bus full of brothers. Not long after the bus left Columbia, it was revealed. So somebody had to give this information up, or Riley, remember he was calling his mom and texting his mom. It was revealed that there was not only beer on each of the charter buses, but that certain members had pre-made alcoholic Jello shots using vodka, an alcohol that was well in excess of 15%. This was not an unusual occurrence, and the fraternity members began consuming the beer and Jello shots while traveling the roadways of Missouri and continued to do so until the charter buses arrived in Nashville. Several drinks were offered to Riley by Delta Chi members. Although it was supposed to be prohibited, this type of conduct was typical for the formal. It would have disastrous results for Riley. Later that afternoon, the group arrived in Nashville. Within hours, several fraternity members noticed that Riley was acting unusual. He began to have difficulty speaking, walking, and interacting with those around him. Within this training, By the time the group reached the final bar of the night, Riley was virtually incoherent. He was leaning against the walls to stay upright, stumbling up and down the steps, was completely unable to speak or communicate, and needed help. When a bar kicked Riley out, Riley's fraternity brothers had two options. One, go with Riley and make sure he is safe and take care of him. Or two, continue to party. Riley's brothers chose to continue to party. After being kicked out of the bar, Riley was lost. Without help, he immediately began walking in the wrong direction and away from the hotel where the fraternity was staying, and towards the Cumberland River. He began stumbling and falling while walking on flat surfaces. Rather than having the support of his brothers, Riley was abandoned and alone. At 9:53 p.m. on March 8th, 2024, Riley disappeared. Riley's fraternity brothers failed to notice. Now, this is where I think that's interesting, is that so they failed to notice. By approximately 1 a.m. on March 9, 2024, most of the group returned to the hotel. Riley's roommates for the night saw that Riley was not in the room and did nothing. So who were Riley's roommates? Did SF investigates? They're clearly being called out. You see that? They're clearly being called out. Who were his roommates? SF, you didn't interview his roommates on the trip. So his roommates they did nothing. There was no search, no panic, and no one called 911 to report that Riley had failed to make the 12-minute walk back to the hotel in over 3 hours. See this again, this whole 911? You don't call 911, Frats. You don't call 911. The fraternity brothers did not even think to call Riley's parents. They simply got ready for bed and went to sleep. Eventually, Riley's parents were called, and sometime around 12 noon on March 9, 2024, the Nashville police were finally contacted. A citywide search for Riley ensued. Now, this is my take on this right here, and I'm going to make this note as an athlete, okay? If we were to ever be on, let's say, a road trip and had a road game, and for like golf, for example, you're there for multiple days, whereas like a basketball game that happens on one day, you usually fly out the day or 2 days before, have a practice there, and then the game is on that following day. Then you fly back on the day that you played, usually in the evening, things like that. Okay. So that would be, if you didn't fly, you could be taking buses. I could never imagine that we could possibly be on a school function, okay, with an organization from the school, and that if I and be offered on the bus to go to this game, that the captains and coaches would just be like fucking getting us ripped, okay, and having no problem with it. If we did that shit on our own without anybody knowing, right? But it being supposed to like not happen. And so I was trying to compare it to like, okay, how could this be like on a trip like that? Is it comparable? We always had curfews, but we never went off. We were never allowed to go alone anywhere. Okay. There was no, if we went and left the hotel, like you could not leave by yourself. That's a rule. And you also had to like notify, like if we were, hey, I got to go to CVS. It's just like, cause we're in like the square and it's just like right there or something like that. But also we had curfews, and if we didn't make curfews and we didn't play, I mean, but we were also told that we were adults and we're not going to be like, dude, I'm not babysitting you. So golf had different rules than basketball. I'll tell you that. So So I think it's going to be interesting for them to say that nobody panicked or worried or anything. Did people call him? Were people trying to get in touch with him? Were people trying to get in touch with him at, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 9:45, 10? So that's all going to be interesting. Eventually, on March 22nd, 2024, Riley was found face down in the Cumberland River, the banks of which were a 4-minute walk from where the bar that Riley was deserted by his brothers. Riley was pronounced dead not long after being found. Delta Chi's influence and control. So here we go. Delta Chi exerted substantial and ongoing influence, management, and control over the day-to-day affairs of the University of Missouri chapter and could have and should have stopped the dangerous destination formal from happening, yet it failed to do so. So the first thing is that this should have never even happened because everything about it was outside of what you're allowed to do. So these are the rules, and everything to do with it broke all the rules. So if this formal would have never happened, the way that it did, Riley would still be here. Do you guys believe that? $72. Delta Chi's control is evidenced by dozens of specific requirements that it imposed upon the Delta Chi officers and members that dictated how the day-to-day affairs of the chapter were to be conducted and managed, including but not limited to the following. So then they would have gotten themselves this, I guess you could say, standard operating protocols, SOPs, policies and procedures. And a list is run off of like what these officers were required. They were required to attend training sessions. The members were required to interact with the board of chapter. And them listing these things is basically, I believe that they have proof that this didn't happen. Because there's the stuff that they're specifying to me is, I think that they have evidence that they didn't do those things. The University of Missouri Delta chapter was required to grant access to the University of Missouri's Delta Chi chapter house to all persons sent by Delta Chi to inspect or oversee, manage, and advise the chapter on how to conduct themselves on a day-to-day basis. So are we saying that didn't happen? University of Missouri, the cabinet meetings were required to be set at a standard time and place. University of Missouri Delta chapter was required to prepare a budget and financial report, basically saying because they didn't do that, then you would have been able to see where the money was going and how this stuff was being funded. Chairmen were required to be appointed for each committee that the University of Missouri Delta Chi was required to establish by Delta Chi, so they didn't do that. Cabinet and chapter retreats were required to take place in order to review fraternity business, establish chapter goals consistent with Delta Chi rules, regulations, and policies, and to develop a calendar for goals going forward. From reading this, it sounds like it was just like they weren't doing any of this shit. All University of Missouri Delta Chi officer responsibilities were required to be developed and updated each year, and an expectation set for each year for each of them. Like, that tells you that that wasn't happening. A source for Delta Chi communications among all University of Missouri Delta Chi members was required to be established. So I was like, whoa, like, what do we think that is? A source for Delta Chi communications. So were they supposed to all have like a group app? I'm interested in that. That's why I have a little question mark there. A visit with the University of Missouri Greek advisor was required to take place to review issues with the chapter on the University of Missouri campus. An annual audit of University of Missouri, the finances by an independent third party was required to be submitted. These weren't happening. IRS tax forms were required to be filed on time, and Form H was required to be submitted. Like, how do they know this shit? Because they have a whistleblower. A finance committee was required to be formed to assist with the financial planning of the University of Missouri Delta Chi chapter. A University of Missouri a bulletin board. They were supposed to have a bulletin board up. Was required to be created for the posting of financial information. So they knew, like, hey, we don't have a bulletin board either. Like, they're just going through this and listing all these things. And it's like, what the so what piqued my interest is with the Idaho 4 case and the Greek life that's clearly involved in that case. It's like, wow, okay. Secret society. How about this? Cabinet and committee notebooks were required to be created containing job descriptions, budget forms, committee report forms, past committee reports, goal sheets, and note sheets. Meetings were required to be held after the University of Missouri Delta Chi pledging process was completed. So that wasn't done, the pledging process, to educate the young members regarding the documents, rules, and policies of the chapter. An information system was required to be created containing all of the important information for University of Missouri Delta Chi brothers and pledges, including birthdays and phone numbers. So then I started thinking about this case, Riley's case, and it's like they were probably, the parents were like, where's your guys' list of all the people that are members here? I want to call all these people, or who was with Riley? Like, where's my son? Who are these people on this 911 call? Who was all at that part? Like, who traveled? So when they couldn't, like, where is this list? These birthdays, the addresses, the phone numbers. Then a summer address list was required to be created for all University of Missouri brothers and distributed to each of them. That was something that we had to have with our sports. They wanted to know where we lived and who we were living with. They had to approve of who, if we didn't live with an athlete, and they had to know them. They had to pass a background check, because it's not to have control over us. It's about safety. It's about when you're recruited and you tell a parent that we're going to take care of your kid like they were our own when they're here. And we're going to look after them and care for them and be like family to them. Okay. Parents go on kids' recruiting trips every day, all the time. I could tell you that my mom and my dad would not have been like, they would have voiced like, yeah, this person, they couldn't answer any questions about, you have a girl, like, you want to know about safety stuff. You want to know about, That's kind of why I think Riley's parents are saying the whole dear parents part. Next up. University of Missouri Delta, these notebooks are required to be created that contain the documents for each of the committees, updated Missouri fall rosters. Like that's what I said. Like, dude, did they not even know who was in the fraternity? And that's why, again, here, SF investigates. Like, who were you interviewing? Because like, I would love to know who you were interviewing, because it seems like you don't even know who's a member of this damn freaking house. You guys, we see the whole hazing stuff all the time. We see what's going on. Here is a way that you could go about it to actually maybe get something to change. You know when they say there's 100 ways to skin a cat, right? Well, here, maybe this is how you have to do it, because it's all about, you're creating an environment, and if your environment, like, did it cause, are they negligent? And I believe that they are. Yeah, I can't. If kids want to be shitbags, okay, whatever. But if I'm forced to be around shitbags, like, I get it. You didn't have to rush. You didn't have to, oh, I got a bid here. I didn't have to rush that fraternity or that sorority or whatever. Yeah, but I'm also going off of what you're telling me, right? And you lied to me. I rushed based off of your fucking lies. So fuck you. Riley's not a baby, okay? But this was considered a school function. This was one of the formals. It was just elected that it could be off campus. But it's still a school function. And that's, I personally believe that if Riley did not leave by himself, he would still be alive today. That's my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with his consumption. It has to do with protection. Did Riley think that by going out with those people and being involved with that was there ever a chance that could happen? Well, no, not if the people did what they said they were going to do. All information necessary for completion of the University of Missouri. Basically, this is the other thing, is if they would have done all of this, guess what? That formal would have never been able to be had the way that it was. And because of the formal being run the way that it was, with alcohol on the bus and being totally intoxicated before you even get to a foreign place. Remember, we were all looking at it like, well, how did Riley not know where he was? Well, they were fucking intoxicated and drunk when they got off of a bus in a foreign place that now you're trying to, what's east, west? You don't fucking know where you're at. You didn't know where you were at ever. Okay. Riley didn't know that he was ever walking the wrong way, because Riley got there, he was hammered. So I think that what this is all about is that if you had to follow your own procedures and policies, then that would have been prevented. False sense of security. They were supposed to be his brothers. And yeah. Do you know about this case? Yes. Did the friends know he got kicked out of a bar? Yes. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They were with him. Yes, they did. Yes, but there isn't nothing that says when you walk into my bar that if you're intoxicated, we have the right not to serve you, but then we're also going to get you an Uber. Like, that wasn't a owed thing to Riley, because it comes down to what type of duty of care I didn't serve you. As soon as we realized that you couldn't drink or you couldn't walk or you couldn't talk, we didn't serve you. Now, I don't know how the bouncer lives with himself, seeing that you would ever put somebody outside a place that the dude can't even talk or walk. So, like, from a moral standpoint, I think that bouncer is a piece of fucking garbage. Okay, like, what did you think was going to happen? Nothing good. Fuck, he could have walked out in the middle of the road and got hit by a car. You know what I mean? Like, so. What else do we got here? All information necessary for the completion of the University of Missouri pledge forms was required to be collected and submitted to Delta. See, pledge forms. You don't even know who's pledging. You don't even know when the pledging process started. None of this shit exists. Holiday greeting cards. Look at this stuff. Holiday greeting cards, donation thank you letters, and letters to parents of new pledges were required to be sent out by University of Missouri Delta Chi. They weren't. Like, it's interesting that what they're showing is that was this even a fraternity? Like, what the fuck? Like, they didn't care. Basically, they're just showing that they didn't care about anything. Okay? This isn't how it's supposed to be. A mailbox system, you guys, was required to be set up for all brothers living in the University of Missouri in that house. They didn't have their individual mails. Like, wow. So now think about what SF Investigates said again. That, wow, none of the people listed on that lawsuit or anybody that I talked to. Well, were you talking to actual fraternity members? They probably couldn't put people on the list because they weren't fraternity members, technically. You understand that? Then, like, so I started thinking about that. I'm like, holy shit, I wonder, they probably can't sue anybody that wasn't actually the paperwork. They have no paperwork on these people. So I was just like, literally, like, reading this, researching shit. I'm just like, holy shit, think about it. If there's no paperwork on these people, how could they be part of it? You know, it's just wild. All Delta Chi mail was required to be read at all University of Missouri, like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean all their mail? Like, even personal mail? We have to read that out loud? So I don't understand that. Have you guys ever heard about this? Or is it just like the mail that the chapter gets from like, or is this like everybody's mail? All mail. So all Delta Chi mail was required to be read at all University of Missouri Delta Chi chapter meetings. Does that mean like, hey, this is our bill for our utilities? Chapters mail? Okay, I was about to say, like, is it personal mail? If my mom writes me a letter. Okay, there we go. That would make sense, as I was like, wow, this is like prison. Hey, Mom, don't send me any mail because they read it all. I'm like, wait, what? University of Missouri Delta Chi graduate publications were required to be sent out with a copy sent to. That didn't happen. University of Missouri Delta news and photographs were required. So they probably were trying to look around to see what people looked like. Okay. Hey, we got to try to, like, who are these people? SF investigates. Who did you interview, man? Post initiation education programs were required to be held for all new University of Missouri Delta Chi members who completed the pledging process. That clearly didn't happen. All these members, they had rules, regulations regarding pledge education were required to be complied with. A University of Missouri pledge education committee was required to be formed. My God, like a weekly agenda for the pledging program was required to be created in conjunction with the University of Missouri Delta Chi officers and interested brothers before the pledging process begins. University of Missouri Delta Chi was required to submit plans for its formal. Did they not submit these plans? University of Missouri, so that's going to be a big one because it has to do exactly with the formal. University of Missouri, it's also creating like a pattern. So you're showing that like this is just, they weren't doing anything. This wasn't just a one slip through the crack. No. This was, you're showing that this was eventually going to happen. University of Missouri Delta could have formal without Delta Chi approval for submission of its proposal. So again, it didn't happen. Risk management policies annually. Required use of judicial or senior boards, all members. And then they just list all these people, okay? And so this is then these are the counts. So all of those people listed, hold on. In addition, at all times, material here too, Delta Chi had a special relationship with Riley as a fraternity member, which gave rise to a duty on behalf of Delta Chi to prevent conduct and actions that would result in harm to him. So negligence is count one. And so the plaintiff incorporates everything above and at all times. So Riley, as a member of the Delta Chi fraternity and as a brother in the organization. So Delta Chi breached that duty of care and was negligent, careless, and or reckless in one or more of the following ways. And so these are the ways. In failing to adequately enforce its written policies at the university. In failing to properly train the leadership. In failing to take adequate precautions to ensure that fraternity members would be safe while on a formal trip. In approving the formal plans for the trip on which Riley died. In failing to take adequate precautions to ensure that its members did not become dangerously intoxicated on the formal trip. In failing to have adequate safety precautions in place to prevent Riley from the social event that was the formal, in failing to require that properly trained personnel be present at the University of Missouri Delta Chi Formal in Nashville to provide the necessary oversight of the event and to ensure that no dangerous and or illegal activity took place. In failing to properly supervise the board of chapter advisors to make sure that they were providing the proper oversight of the University of Missouri Delta Chi, specifically with regard to the oversight of formals. In failing to replace the members of the board of chapter advisors with persons who would do the job in a careful and diligent manner, in failing to adequately monitor the University of Missouri Delta chapter or group rather, and other social media pages in order to determine what upcoming activities and traditions were being planned so that the events could be properly supervised and dangerous and or illegal conduct stopped before it started. I was actually looking, go deep diving and see if you can find and send them my way. I was interested to see what social media posts were made in 2024 and 2023 in terms of like, you know how we all went deep diving with all the fraternities and sororities with Idaho 4. So with this, I'm curious what kind of stuff was being promoted. Isn't national chapter responsible for stuff? Yeah, this is how you get put on like probation. This is how you lose. Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm curious if this was even a fraternity. I mean, this is really weird, strange stuff. I believe by them doing this, this would save somebody else's life. So for me, when I see this, I see the way they've gone about this. Listen, if there's anything that I want to come from this is I don't want somebody to be standing in my shoes one day if it could just be because of this. So, and I kind of got that sense when you would see the parents, when they would talk, they come across as very grounded, very good people and parents and who love their boy. And they're not going for like the putting a Band-Aid over the bleeding wound. We're going to go where the root of the problem is. So in allowing excessive alcohol consumption on the charter buses to Nashville, in direct violation of written policies and procedures, in hiring or allowing a charter company to be hired that would allow vast amounts of alcohol on board, in failing to have proper chaperones, advisors, and or oversight at the Nashville Formal, and in instilling a code in its fraternity members that encouraged or taught fraternity brothers to abandon one another instead of helping one another. Yeah, I think this is what we're getting at. That's the whole point, Nick. I think that's what this is getting at. Is how can you label this a formal, okay, a formal event that, from my understanding, wasn't the formal on the Saturday. And so they go early on the Friday. They all get drunk on this bus, get to their hotel, people change or whatever, and then they're out bar hopping again. And then they're going to have the event on Saturday, correct? And then back on the buses on Sunday. I mean, call me crazy, but none of that even sounds remotely fun for me, that I would ever be on a bus for X amount of hours on Friday and then back on that on Sunday, like, shoot me. No way. Yes. So I think it's hard then to say that we're only going to be responsible for the people on the Saturday when your event is busing them on a Friday. Like, you're assuming responsibility for Friday to Sunday, in my opinion. This wasn't kids going off and just doing their own spring break trip like 4 kids. Yes, an official frat activity and an unsanctioned charter bus by the frat. Mm-hmm, exactly. So, as a direct and proximate result of carelessness and negligence of defendant, which is the chapter, Riley disappeared on March 8, 2024, and was pronounced dead March 22nd, 2024, having drowned in the Cumberland River. After Riley was abandoned, but prior to his death, he experienced, it's horrible. Yes, they were able to, he died, it was alcohol poisoning and drown. So yeah, he had copious amounts. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's negligence, Riley suffered severe injuries, ultimately resulting in his death. Riley suffered extreme physical and emotional damage and pain and suffering prior to his death. So, prior to Riley's premature death, he was an able-bodied man capable of doing and performing work and labor. As a direct and proximate result of his death, plaintiffs have been and in the future will suffer loss of income, wages, earnings, salaries, and profits. So, it'll be interesting. Oh, so I went further and want to just highlight some other things I thought was interesting here. Delta. Delta Chi presented and promoted the officers, members, and advisors of the University of Missouri Delta Chi as its apparent agents and represented to Riley Strain that the individually named defendants and University of Missouri Delta Chi members were acting on its behalf and as its apparent agents. It did so in a variety of ways, including but not limited to the following. So check this out. Planning the formal as a Delta Chi event with Delta Chi promotions and attributions, requiring that the officers, members, and advisors of the University of Missouri Delta Chi follow and enforce the Delta Chi policies, requiring that the leadership of Delta Chi comply with dozens of specific mandates for their specific offices that they held. And here's what was interesting. Requiring that the University of Missouri Delta Chi display the fraternity's Greek letters on the chapter house. They were not displaying their Greek letters? Like, isn't that like a big thing? Like, what? They were just running amok over there. grab my lunch. Look at that. Civil court moves at a snail's pace. That's true. Almost all settle. I doubt this goes to trial. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want this to go to trial if I was this chapter. But I don't necessarily think that they broke all of these. I know. I agree with that. If they did, it's just crazy. But it's not supposed to be like a pride thing, though. We gotta make sure that everybody is paying their dues on time. Pledges, timely pay the dues. See, why is it the pledges? Why not talk about that it's members and pledges? Okay. Recording that the University of Missouri leadership attend meetings and training sessions. Well, I think I was looking online to see if I could see the letters on the house. Let me know if you can find them. Look at this. Requiring that the University of Missouri Delta Chi utilize and promote the colors. Colors. I personally think that all of this stuff is not in there because it's going to show that this was just a sham from the beginning. Listing the university website as one of the fraternity's official chapters. Look on the university, see if it's listed. Requiring the university chapter to use the rules and codes. You I bet you these kids were asked, do you even know your damn song? No, I don't even know the song. Can you imagine that? You don't even know your damn song. Riley participated under the belief that this shit was legit and that this wasn't some big fucking piece of shit fraternity that lied and sham. Just it makes it seem like it's all a big sham because Riley participated in this Delta Chi fraternity under the reasonable belief that the individual defendants and the University of Missouri chapter members named herein were one and the same with Delta Chi and were acting by and on behalf of Delta Chi at all times, including the planning and execution of the Nashville Formal. Accordingly, Delta Chi is vicariously liable for the negligence of the individual defendants named herein who were at all material times acting in the furtherance of and promotion of Delta Chi. The hell? As a direct and proximate result of the carelessness and the negligence of defendant, which is the Frat, Riley disappeared on March 8, 2024, and was pronounced dead on March 22nd, 2024. After Riley was abandoned, or prior to his death, he was conscious pain and suffering. Ready? Upon information and belief, the Jello shots taken on that trip were prepared at the BCC Missouri property by members of Delta Chi. And that comes right here and why the property owner is in. So the BCC Missouri LLC, They purchased, leased, operated, and or maintained the University of Missouri Delta Chi Fraternity House located at 500 South College Avenue for the purpose of housing members of Delta Chi University of Missouri chapter. This house was also used for all planning of Delta Chi formals by members of the fraternity. In addition to the use of the property for all of its functions, this property was in essence the staging platform for the events that occurred on March 8th, 2024 and thereafter. Upon information and belief, so somebody told them where those jello shots were made. As the owner, operator, and or leasee of the University of Missouri Delta Chi Chapter House, the defendant, BCC Missouri, had a duty to ensure that its property was not being used for unsafe, dangerous, or illegal purposes, including but not limited to preparation of alcoholic drinks that were in excess of 15% ABV and which would fuel drinking on the Delta Chi formal as the buses were traveling from Columbia, Missouri to Nashville, Tennessee. Said defendants breached those duties and was negligent in at least the following respects. So then they list why they're listed, which is the people that, it's kind of like when your parent lets you throw a party in high school and people are drinking there at the house and your parent's liable, So in failing to adequately monitor how the house was being used by the university, in failing to adequately supervise, in allowing conditioning or contributing to the use of alcohol of greater than, and guess what, guys? There's people that were under the age of 21, in allowing Delta Chi members to load the jello shots at the chapter house and then carry those onto the charter buses in direct violation of policies and procedures, and failing to ensure that a strict policy was implemented at the University of Missouri Delta Chi Chapter House, ensuring that the unsafe, dangerous, and or illegal activities would not take place in this house. Yeah. And the people that wrote this, we've done our homework over here. So the reason that these people are named, count 5 here, is the plaintiffs incorporate by reference the preceding paragraphs as, everything above this. At all times, material here too. These people, okay, they referred to collectively as fraternity defendants, had voluntarily undertaken the responsibility to be officers and or members of the University of Missouri Delta Chi fraternity. So that's these people. Let me see how many people we're talking about again. It's all the last names, right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6, 3, 7, 8, 29. Yeah, 30. Okay, yep, 30. 30. 30. Now, this is what's interesting to me. Warm it up is that according to SF Investigates, none of these people listed here, none of them were anyone that he interviewed. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? As officers and or members of the University of Missouri Delta Chi chapter, fraternity defendants had a duty to ensure that they were acting in a manner that was safe for the other members of the University of Missouri Delta Chi chapter, including not creating dangers to the other members such as Riley. They also had a duty to act as brothers and help other members of the University of Missouri Delta Chi chapter that were in need of aid. This was a special relationship. So again, this all comes down to this, like, what's the duty of care that you would have to somebody, okay? And due to this special relationship, these people had a duty of care to Riley. This is all about the law, you guys. This isn't about. This has nothing to do with like what my morals tell me, or like, oh my God, isn't he a he? What do you mean? How am I responsible for that? That dumbass that goes out and drinks and fucking does X, Y, Z. Okay. Well, by the law, there are ways that you could be liable. Fraternity defendants breach those duties and were negligent, careless, and or reckless in one or more of the following ways. So my question would be then, in the 1122 King Road massacre, did Dylan and Bethany, did everybody owe each other? Did they have a special relationship? I mean, I don't think because according in like Idaho, like if you don't call 911, then you're like that's a crime. But I wonder, according though to parents, that it wouldn't have mattered. Cricket Day says that SF Investigates doesn't appear to be good at his investigating. I'm kind of shocked about it. Like for him to just come out and say that, okay, and then say he's not going to comment anymore about it, to say, hey, these are none of the people that I ever interviewed. I don't know who these people are. And I'm just like, wow, well, who were you interviewing? Because I think it actually kind of goes with what the family's saying here, is that maybe we couldn't put any of those people that you interviewed down because they weren't really members. Okay, so they didn't have a special duty to Riley. Maybe they were the plus ones of the people. I want to know how. So those kind of sound stupid that you would take. There's 20-year-olds. Well, they're 20 now. They were probably 19 last year at this time. Why would they ever even go to Nashville? They can't get into any of those bars. You know what I mean? Like, why would you ever have a formal somewhere and incorporate in the plans that people are going to go bar hopping? I mean, some of these kids, they're 20 right now. They would have been 19 then. Yes, you can with a fake ID. That's correct. That's why I'm thinking maybe SF Investigates was investigating people with fake IDs. I don't know. Would you have to have so many plans laid out as to like who people would be rooming with and like know all of that? Would that have to be like talked about ahead of time? Because who was Riley's roommate there? I know how old Riley was. I want to know why. I don't know. This is why I thought that when fraternities or sororities throw parties, they don't, like, aren't you not allowed to have like alcohol because you have people that are underage? How does that work? It's been a while. Do you see this going to trial? Because my question would be, I'd have to look at how this would work. What if the fraternity wants to settle, right? But these kids don't want to settle. What do you think about that? Like, the kids will follow suit with what the fraternity wants. Yeah, but I would be like, I don't have money to pay. Are you paying my way? Like, or do you think it would come out that like, that the kids would be like, well, I wasn't trained properly. I didn't know that I had to do any of this in my officer role. I didn't know this, or this, because I was never told that I had to do any of this stuff. I just was told to show up, or hey, we're doing this and pay your money, or like I was never given these policies and bylaws, and I mean, then what happens? I think it's interesting. I don't think this is going to be dismissed. Let's just say that. Telling they aren't going after the bars. Well, I don't think the bars served him. Remember, we were looking up Riley's receipts, and he only had spent like one or two drinks or something like that. And that's why I was just like, what the fuck? There's no way he would have been fucked up off of one or two drinks like that. And then we said, well, that's just his receipt. What if a bunch of people were buying him drinks? And then now it comes to light that, wow, you know, if you think that there was only Jello shots being taken, I'm sure that people were just chugging out of, you know, vodka bottles. I don't know. That's interesting, though. But these fraternity defendants breached those duties and were negligent, careless, because they were in one or more of the following ways: in the planning or staging and initiating of the formal, that either that way, in creating Jello shots to be consumed at the chapter house and thereafter while in transit to the formal location. So in yep, they were drinking beer too. And having Jello shots that was more than 15%, in cajoling Riley to go to the event. I think they have some text messages. I get the feeling that SF Investigates isn't on board with this. Does that make sense? Like, what do you think there, Bella? Do you think that SF Investigates is like, yeah, this is... I think that he's not in agreement.
I can't say. I just think that he's too close to it to really make an opinion, to say something publicly, and I respect that. Mm-hmm. I respect that he doesn't.
That's what you think? Okay.
Yeah. I respect that he doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah.
In allowing Riley to continue drinking after it became apparent that he was acting in an unusual way. In allowing Riley to continue to drink after he lost the ability to communicate coherently. In allowing Riley to continue to drink after noticing and acknowledging that Riley was acting out of character. Great question there, Tammy. Was this SF Investigates guy, was he like a frat boy back in the day? Interesting, huh? Yeah, a bunch more has come out as far as Riley. Yes, he was asked to leave. But Riley it was so quick when they got in there at that place that it was noticed, and the staff sent out like a text message with a picture of him, and so a lot has surfaced like after the fact, and these guys that were the frat people, the friends and stuff like that, they like knew that he was leaving. And like nobody went after him. So, in purchasing drinks for Riley, for noticing, or after noticing. So they have proof here that, remember how I started to talk about the receipts? So we all noticed that Riley had only bought, I'm telling you, it was 1 or 2 beverages. Like they went and looked up his like debit card and shit. So it's like, who else was purchasing these drinks? Well, right here, in purchasing drinks for Riley, after noticing and acknowledging that Riley was acting in an unusual way, and purchasing drinks for Riley after noticing and acknowledging that Riley had lost the ability to communicate coherently, in purchasing drinks for Riley after noticing and acknowledging that Riley was acting out of character. In purchasing drinks for Riley after noticing and acknowledging that Riley was having difficulty walking. And allowing Riley to be kicked out of a bar alone. And allowing Riley to leave the bar alone despite the knowledge of Riley's inability to communicate, walk, and or talk. You guys think about this. Come on. If you're with your friend and they're getting kicked out and they cannot walk, they cannot talk, you know they're fucked beyond fucked up. I mean, it's different if someone was just being like an asshole and they're perfectly fine, but hey, that's my friend, and they like to just run their mouth, okay? But you don't let your friend go alone in that situation. If they're your friend, holy shit. Like, who was his best buddy there? Like, I mean, it's wild. And choosing to return to drinking and partying instead of helping Riley. And failing to call for aid for Riley. And failing to arrange a ride for Riley back to the hotel. And in delaying the call to emergency services after they knew or should have known that Riley could be in trouble. So, I don't know. Is this the area where young guys have been found dead in the water? Yeah, it's just sad. It's all sad. It's all sad. But this is what happens when you think that you have friends. Fake. This is fake friends. Fake friends behave like this. So, October size. That's sad. We were scrambling to get a bunch of body cam back in the day. I think it was really weird that there's only one spot where the camera goes, and it's like the one spot where Riley could have been. He just poof vanishes. Like literally at the one spot where the cameras don't get all of that angle. But I was like, what are the odds? What are the fucking odds? So, but I don't know. I think this fraternity is a shit show. I don't think they should be I don't think they should be operating. Okay, I think they're going to be able to show that this is clearly not a one-off situation. There's a lot of problems here, and this could have totally been prevented. They need to adhere to what they're supposed to adhere to, that none of this would have happened. That's my take on it. And that's all. And so there you go. Riley Strain lawsuit revealed, Brotherhood my ass. In a brotherhood, you don't leave people behind. It's sick. I mean, the video that is turned up after the fact, like those dudes knew that Riley couldn't even stand. He couldn't talk. He couldn't stand. Unless those brothers are all like blind and they have, I don't know, service dogs or walking sticks. No. So thank you. They're not talking about drugs at all, you guys, in this being roofied, or this has nothing to do with that. That's not in the lawsuit whatsoever. I have no idea why people would even be talking about that. That's not what the lawsuit says. If that is revealed during a trial, if that comes out, but that was not revealed in any aspect of this case. This was alcohol poisoning and drowning, period. And nowhere in this lawsuit does it say anything about being roofied, drugged, or anything like that. And they performed 2 autopsies. So, all right, guys. But prayers to Riley's family, and I stand with Riley's family. Go fuck them up, baby. Go get them. Try to prevent future deaths with these frats doing whatever the fuck they think that they want, and like I said, like lying to these kids, and these kids need to feel like they need to be part of it to be cool. Fuck out of here. It's a sham. So, yeah. Well, I'm only going by the documents, and nowhere in the documents does it say that he was roofied or there was drugs in his system. Maybe it'll come out. Maybe this is a way to get some things to come out with this civil suit, that maybe then criminal charges would come out. I didn't really want to say this, but I'll spell it out for people. But a civil case like this, that means it leads to discovery. And so from that discovery, then if things did take place, then that can then turn into criminal charges. So always keep that in mind. Like that people absolutely wait. It's a very sad situation. So, but brotherhood my ass. I've seen the videos. Google Riley. You're going to see the videos of him at the bar when he's leaving out the back door. And he's actually, because so much video has now surfaced. Like Luke Bryant's bar put out like a ton of videos of him. So, but I will see you guys in the next one. Join me later. Peace out. Thank you, mods. Appreciate you. I agree. Sad and avoidable. 100. If he wouldn't have been by himself, this would have never happened.